Hello, this is Danny Murphy, host of Profit Sharing in the Real World, where we talk about profit sharing. Today we're talking with Dick Erickson, founder of Sun Tire in Jacksonville and author of the book, Profit Sharing in the Real World. Dick, it's always good to see you.
It's good to be here. This is stuff I like to talk about.
Well, now, one thing about profit sharing, before there can even be any profit sharing, there has to be some profit.
Yes, and that's the point that I had to in my career. I started off sometimes if I just had a location, everything is fine and blah blah. I know, and then I got to find anyhow. The point was location, and as we talk about location, and we've touched on is the point is we got to know the demographics of where we're going into. What type of demographics would buy our product? We touched on the issue, or have had discussion about. Sometimes you could be on the high end part of the deal, and that in itself upscale neighborhood.
And you think that they can afford my product? Surely this will be a good place to set up shop.
That's right. And then when you realize, you look around and they're driving cars that, in fact, they trade cars quicker than they do buy tires. Well, there's not a market like we like. We like people who keep cars 4 or 5 years or something, to wear out a set or two of tires. Both within the demographics, both people are probably working, so they're utilizing 2 cars quite regular. But anyhow, as we go back and so we figure out our demographics, the other issue that I had, and I started realizing we had to have, the parking was very important. You got to have it that it's the places that it's easily to find out where should I park, how do I park it, come in and do all that. There's one that recently was a new restaurant. And we heard about it, and everyone's talking about the food. Well, we got there, and there was basically no parking. You had to use someone to park your car and all that. That's fine, except there might be 4 people in front of you. You got to wait till those 4 cars get parked before you can park. And I thought, oh my goodness. And I hadn't eaten there yet. And once I got in, it was spectacular inside. I mean, the restaurant, it has great food, beautiful seating and all that. But the one issue for sure that hit my mind was hard to get in and out of this place. And where do I park? Well, so these issues is so important to think about those things. The other issue too, so you're thinking of parking. The other thing, it's got to fit the nature of your business. You kind of, after a period of time, say, how much money can I afford on a location? Let's say I'm going to amortize a loan. The loan buys my property and building, and on a 30-year note, what's that payment? Because I got to run that through my company every month, and I've got to, for cash flow. And there's sometimes the greatest location in the world might be out of my price range, so you can't do that either. So you got to really have a feel for these things, because what we're really trying to do is develop this into a profitable business. And the big picture is so I could share profits with everyone. The real clinger of getting people, your employees, bought in, and now they are part of the company.
So location. There's just so much truth to that. I think we've both seen a number of people over our lives who thought, man, I have got the greatest idea for business. I'm going to set up a block or 2 away from the main drag, and it's going to be great because they're going to come to me. They're just going to love me.
Yeah.
And it's not usually going to work that way.
It's got the more that you can expose your business to the public that you want to be attracted to. And a lot of times that's on the busy thoroughfares. So there's a price for that, but you don't have to have the best of that location, but probably if nothing else is you're leashed on that thoroughfare. You're on that street. That street is very important. You get a block away, and the problem is if you were still the only person there in the future, that'd be maybe okay, because they'll find you. But what happens sometimes, the next guy comes in and he cuts you off because his location is on the main street, a block above yours. They see him before they see you, and now you're in second place.
Second place. That's not where you want to be.
No.
That's great. We went over one thing. You mentioned the prosperous neighborhoods, like around here, Ponte Vedra, around the golf clubs, the country clubs,
Yes,
and people might think that those are great places to set up because the people obviously have money. They're driving Jaguars, Mercedes, whatever,
yeah,
but they're not getting new tires every few years. They're trading in their car every 2 or 3 years for the new model.
absolutely. And we found too, there's something so to really understand that in your business model, I mean, if you're selling less expensive tires, you're going to wear out more often, but that means you're going to also, and there should be a price differential for that or you won't be selling them. So it's less price, but it's the traffic. You're looking to maximize your traffic because there's other things you sell, alignments, brakes. And that comes with traffic. You got to get them into your place of business to even inspect the car.
Now, for you, the locations were key to selling the business later, and really that was your main asset was the property. You started
Yes.
out in Orange Park where there were, what, 6 or 8 lanes of traffic?
Yeah, oh, yeah. It was
a lot of traffic out there, even back then.
crazy. You could not come across. You had to go up to catch a light and come back down. That's not ideal a lot of times when it's that busy.
Okay, so that was one of your first, and then I think, did you go to 100?
Mandarin,
Mandarin.
and then Regency, and then South Side. Yeah.
Yeah, Mandarin. Okay, Mandarin right on the main drag, easy to get.
Yep.
Regency. Now, let's talk a little bit about Regency. You had a little problem with the pricing, and somebody helped you out. Tell me about that.
Yeah. Well, that was again. It was an old Whataburger. Now, it wasn't an old one. It was only 5 years old, and they shut down. So it had a new building built on there. I mean, nice bathrooms and all that, and it was for sale. So I went and I said, well, I could put a canopy on the front for the work area, and everything else is there. I got plenty of room for warehousing, enough room to make a nice display room and things of that sort, and the bathroom. So here it was. I mean, it had been a restaurant deal, and so it was pretty well picked out. I don't know the reason that it closed, but any of that being said, good location. And I looked at and so when I got into the pricing of it, so here again, now we're talking about another aspect of a location. What do I have to pay to get in here? So when I looked at it and got a price, and it was just a little bit on the high end, the way it was not, well, couldn't get quite there. And a friend of mine in another market was asking me a little bit about what I was going through, and I was telling him about this problem. And he said, so how much are you off? And let's say it was $50,000. I was within $50,000 of being able to put this deal together. He said, Dick, let's look at it this way. Divide 50,000 by 30 years and 12 months a year. What's your monthly deal? That's what's going to hit your statement. And when I looked at it, I went back and bought it. That next day, I said, should not hold me back. I was close enough. So sometimes the point there is it was on the high end. It turned out to be a very good store for me, but I was just about to be a little bit too close on the number. I needed to open up a little bit. And when we did, got it going, and it turned out to be one of our better stores.
Now, when it comes to location, it's important to look at every bit of information about that neighborhood you can get. You saw what you thought was a good location on University, and based mainly on the population density, which was really good.
Yeah.
But there were other factors that didn't make it great.
And on that point, in fact, when I sold the company, we had 11 stores. Of the 11 stores, to this day, the greatest density is that location, and it was store number 4. So when I got that, I said, this is for sure a winner. The 3-mile radius population, 5-mile was number 1, and as I looked at other areas, I said, I don't know how I'd improve on this. Very dense area. So anyhow, we got in there, and it turned out at the end, it was one of my lesser stores because of a couple things. Number one was the income level of that area was such that it encouraged renters versus buyers. And a couple issues there. If the lower the level, the less money they have to buy my tires, for instance. That's one issue. The other issue is at that level, if they're renters, they are short-term customers. Renters come and go. So those are the two number of things that hurt us in that location, and it never turned into a good store. It was a good store, but it wasn't a great store.
Now you mentioned that they were renters, and for that reason, you couldn't really count on them. Even if they loved Sun Tire,
That's right.
loved the store, loved everything about it, if they're gone in 2 years, they're not a customer anymore.
No, they're not a long-term. You like 8-10-year customers sometimes, and of course, ideally, some of these places with 30 years being if they're fairly young and moved into that area, although if it's a decent, sometimes they have to move up into even the middle class ones from maybe an entry level, but yes.
Okay, so we've been talking about location. Let's talk about 103rd Street. What happened there?
Well, I thought again, went from a density issue, and it was number 5. I said, and that one was too new, the density issue, to know whether it was going to be good or not. But anyhow, we had our operation going. We're profitable as a full company, not where we wanted to be yet. But anyhow, all of a sudden on the other side of town, we could get right across from McDonald's, right across the street. I said, now how can I beat this? McDonald's, a national chain. I mean, what's busier than a McDonald's? And so we built that store, and it turned out to be one of our lower volume stores too in the long run, because hamburgers and tires don't necessarily go together. And probably the income level of a hamburger buyer might not be the level that you'd like for the tire business. And whatever it was, I started realizing I had to be very careful that I looked at the demographics, not paying, and I had to pay an extra price to be across from McDonald's, And so being wise about don't follow a chain. If it's somewhere in the area, that's one thing. There's going to be traffic. McDonald's is going to have traffic for you somewhat, but betting on the McDonald's to be the number one issue was not true for us.
So it might have been a great place to set up a sandwich store.
Yes.
Or some other sort of food establishment.
Good point.
Because you suck off some of their traffic.
Yeah.
But for tires, the people going into McDonald's, they might have been more geared towards, that guy down the street with a sandwich board that says, tires, used tires, $10, $15.
Yeah. So it turned out that was a learning experience. So all the things we've touched on, all are part of location. Just the expression that we've all heard, if you're in business, location, location, location. That's only the starting point. Okay, tell me what's in the location. How does it fit your business? And I found in my business, the things we've touched on here, extremely important to know those.
Now, you hit a home run before you sold. With the racetrack location. You could see the demographics. You could see what was going to happen to the demographics. Tell me about that decision.
Well, here again was a new part of town to the south of Jacksonville, and a different county, which was a little tougher to get zoning and stuff in that. But anyhow, we realized there wasn't there was a need for a tire business. It wasn't already saturated with tire stores and all, like some parts of Duval County it was. But anyhow, so we picked a good location, easy in, getting out, and good parking. In fact, there's enough room. Time I sold, I was ready to buy another parcel right next to it, because it had grown so fast. I couldn't believe where this had gone. But what it was is having the knowledge that it over the 10 years now, of course, as an ideal leech, what I get accused of, knowing what I know today, if I was going to recommend to anyone, go out and find out from someone who's learned those kind of things, or, listening to a pod like this, or whatever you do to shorten up the learning curve. Because if you have to take 10 years to find it, now I can't say it was bad, but you a lot of times can shorten that up by reaching out and figure out what is it I need to be looking for, so I don't have to take 10 years to learn all the tricks of the trade.
Location, location, location. That's what people say, and there's a reason why people say that about any retail business. It makes a huge difference. And where you go, the people that you're going to be able to do business with, it's very important to consider that before laying down your money and putting it out there. Dick, any final words about location?
No, well, it probably is, but kind of as I think through what we experienced was what I didn't realize is there's about 6, 7 things to a great location for a particular business, but you got to know your business. What is your demographic? What are the needs for your demographics? What are their needs? Well, a demographic, I wanted people who needed tires every year, possibly. They had 2, 3 cars. Their husband and wife were working and stuff, so they used them. So, I mean, there's all sorts of things that goes into the location, and I wouldn't take that. You want to be on a trafficked area. And then to understand the demos and that easy access, but it's a study, but not to take it lightly how important. There is a real reason they point that out, but what they don't sometimes talk about is all the little things that goes into a great location.
So location plays a big part in profitability, and profitability comes before profit sharing.
Yes.
Dick, it's always great to talk to you. Thanks for being with us. Danny Murphy, host of Profit Sharing in the Real World. Dick's book is available at Amazon.com, Profit Sharing in the Real World. And thank you for listening.